I sort of find that the turn towards shame in sort of trauma studies and trauma therapy, I just find it incredibly useful. And even naming shame, like naming it in the abstract, talking about, well, what is shame, and how do we, and where does it come from? And even, what's the function of shame? And there's, for some of, the more sort of intellectually minded survivors, talking about where shame comes from and how it works developmentally. Even the fact that shame in childhood, it really is the only way that a child can mentalize abuse. There's no other resource for a child to understand what's happening to them other than shame. And starting to kind of normalize shame as a response to abuse. I just think it's a very liberating conversation to have. And I think it does help build up people's tolerance to shame, because shame is inherently an avoidant emotion, and then any experience that's saturated in shame becomes something that's so difficult to talk about. Survivors can use it to understand as well, I guess, the social and the cultural context and the institutional context. People react to shame often with more shame, and we live in a society that shames survivors in all sorts of ways, because we live in a society that also doesn't cope with abuse and neglect and betrayal. I think for survivors out there to start to get an understanding of the role and function and purpose of shame is a way to start to destigmatize the things that are so hard for us to talk about. But ultimately, to be free from the shame of abuse, I think, is a core goal of recovery, and such a profound liberation for survivors who can get to that point.